How well does an LLM do compared to a professional translator? Coming up. Hello and welcome back to the Freelanceverse. Thanks for coming back to the channel once again. Hope you're all doing well. A long time ago now, a couple of years ago, I made a video. I'm going to link it here. I ordered a translation. I think it was a $5 translation versus a $50 translation. I did a comparison of the two. That was quite a fun video to make, and I think a lot of you liked it. So I wanted to do something similar, but from a different angle. So I thought I'm going to order a translation specific in my domain, in my specialty. So I chose a winter sport text, and I ordered it from a professional sports translator, so a specialist, and I had it done by AI, by ChatGPT essentially. Now, I knew that going into this, that AI would not stand a chance against a professional specialized translator. So I wanted to give the machine the best chance possible. So I tailored my prompt based on around that. So I gave as much information as possible. I said that it should pretend to be a specialized German winter sports translator. So I really gave as much possible input as possible. That was one too many possibles, but you know what I mean. And I also gave the same instructions to the translator that I would to the LLM. So I gave the instruction that this should be written. It's from a magazine, it's a blog post from an online winter sport magazine called Ski. It should be for Switzerland, for a Swiss audience. It should be in the same editorial style. It should be for a blog post, for a magazine, so more laid back rather, but still use technical jargon of the winter sports domain. And I also instructed the LLM to ask questions beforehand if there is anything that needs to be clarified. Same I did for the professional translator, by the way. Interestingly, the LLM came back with questions and the professional translator didn't come back with questions. To be fair, the questions of the LLM are not really like things that I would expect a professional translator to ask. But I was a bit surprised that the professional translator didn't ask any questions, because there are a few things I'm going to show you in a second. For example, the gendering, it is kind of always an issue or like a discussion in German editorial texts. Now, the professional translator decided to assume an approach and decided to gender, use both female and male version for every personalized mention. If you're assuming something, that's the correct way to assume and not use the generic masculinum. But nevertheless, I would have probably asked back if I was the translator. What the LLM asked was, do you want this in Swiss Standard German, the written form used in media, or do you want it in dialectal Swiss German styles like Zürichdeutsch, Berndeutsch, etc., which is more informal and conversational? That's something that a professional German translator that works for Switzerland would never ask, because it's clear that the order is for Swiss Standard German, because it's a blog post. There is no way it would be a Swiss German dialect blog post. But fair enough. And the second question the LLM asked was, should I keep the journalistic tone of the original, like a magazine article, or make it sound more like practical advice, direct tips for skiers? Also, weird question, because in the prompt I actually mentioned that the editorial tone should be kept like in the magazine, so it kind of reinforces my prompt and asks back, fair enough. I gave very simple answer, please, with standard German and magazine style, and it delivered. A day later, I actually gave the translator 2 days to do the translation, but he worked overnight, I guess, and the next morning I already had the finished professional translator's work. And I have it here on my desk, so I'm going to switch to the desk view now and show you guys a comparison, what I liked, what I didn't like. All right, here we are. You should see my screen now. This is the original article, and the title itself is already a bit of a tricky one for translations, because it's very common in the US, in English-speaking media, that you would have long titles that are full sentences. Even according to a former US ski team doctor, there's still time to prepare for ski season, according to this person. That's not really a title you would see in German media. So I was interested what the professional translator would do with that, whether it's a he, I can say that, whether he would adapt it to a more German style title, or whether he would leave it. The LLM left it pretty much as is. So these are things that a professional translator can, of course, do more, because in the end, the LLM is not thinking per se how it could be perceived by the target audience, right? Then it's all about preparing your general fitness for the upcoming winter. So it's not that technical. It's not about, really technical ski preparation concepts, etc. I wanted to give the LLM a chance, so I took a relatively general blog post. So if your general fitness level isn't as great as you'd like, here's where to focus before your first ski trip of the winter. As you can see, it's a very general tone, laid back. It's written by E.V. Carrick. I don't know this person, but it's a cool article. I really liked it. So I didn't do the whole one because it's a very long article, but I did half of it. And here are the results. Now, obviously, I'm aware that most of you watching this don't speak German, but I'm just going to explain to you my thought process, what this means. On the right side is the professional translation. On the left side is the LLM translation. Already based on the color coding, you can see which one I prefer. I coded things that I really liked green, things that are a bit, I would think about it and rephrase it, yellow, and things that are just plain wrong or just not suitable, wrong register, or something just needs to be changed, or something missing as well is red. Now let's start with the title. As you can see, the professional translator decided to skip the according to a former doctor of the US ski team and actually incorporated that down here in the lead, even though that's not in the source lead, but it's a very elegant way to take it out of the title and add the former doctor of the US ski team in the lead. So he translated, noch ist Zeit, sich auf die Skisaison vorzubereiten. There is still time to prepare for the ski season. So that's a very, general title, but it's not a full sentence. It's a title that you would see in German media. Whereas the LLM took it literally and just translated whatever is in the source text as well, which doesn't really work for a German title. So I much prefer the professional one. The lead was okay for both of it. You see, I prefer the professional one. That's why I made it green, but I didn't really mark the LLM yellow. It's fine. It's just a more literal translation. It's all in one sentence, and the translator split it up into two, which is always nice. They started with a rhetorical question. Ist dein Fitnessniveau noch nicht da, wo du es gerne hättest? Is your level not there where you would like it to be? This former doctor of the US team gives you tips what you should do before you hit the slope in the winter. Now, one thing very important, deine erste Skireise. Skireise is of course correct. It's a translation for ski trip, but it's also relatively odd. No one would say I'm going on a Skireise. The translator decided to translate it freely and said before you hit the slope for the first time, bevor du dich zum ersten Mal auf die Piste wagst. Very nice translation, I like it. You could also say Skiferien. In Switzerland it's Ferien and not Urlaub for any Germans that are watching. Later on we will see that because the LLM used Urlaub, which doesn't really exist in Switzerland. Ski trip would have even been worked in this context. The register would be fine, but Skireise is not really good. I didn't mark it red because it's fine, but you could see that it's a translation that not a person wrote. Then the first paragraph is much better by the professional translator. You can really see the source text shining through in the LLM, especially with things like so wie ich. Let me check what this ellipsis is in the source. Yeah, like me, between commas, so it's a literal translation of that, and you can really see that's an odd phrasing. Wenn du diesen Artikel liest, suchst du wahrscheinlich, so wie ich, nach einer Liste von Übungen. That doesn't sound natural. Very nicely done in the professional translators version. Wenn es dir so geht wie mir, bist du wahrscheinlich auf der Suche nach einfachen Workouts, die du vor deinem ersten Ski-Ausflug der Saison noch kurz reindrücken kannst. It's very casual, reindrücken as in you can just, get it in. It literally means push it in, so you can push it into your schedule. It's a nice turn of phrase, Ski-Ausflug instead of Skireise again. Much better. And then the first mistranslation in my opinion. Wir sind eigentlich schon im Rückstand. I think we're lagging behind in the source. Let me check. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but we're already running behind. You would say that when you're behind in a game, you're im Rückstand. Not a nice way of referring to time that has passed too quickly, in my opinion. Translator said very nicely, ich sag's nur ungern, aber wir sind ziemlich spät dran. Rund 7 Monate zu spät, um genau zu sein. Very nice flow of the reading as well. It has a nice tone to it. Perfect translation of the first paragraph. I was very happy with that. Then again, in English media, it's quite common to ask rhetorical questions. For example, why? Because the training should start the moment. So this short phrasing of why. Usually you don't take that into a German text when you're a translator, right? That's not, it gives flair to the English, but it's not really a thing in German to write warum, weil. You just start with the reason. You don't need to ask the question, right? Then very interesting, this decision, the LLM decided in the source text, there is the name of this clinic where this doctor works at the Stone Clinic in San Francisco. And the LLM decided to make it in his clinic in San Francisco. So it took out the name of the clinic and said that it's his. A very odd decision. It should definitely not be his, and the name of the clinic should always be there if it's named in the source. It even has a link to it. Like it links to the Stone Clinic, so it definitely needs to be named. There is a reason for it, that it's in there. So the translator, oh, now I just see a mistake actually. Let me just highlight that. I didn't catch that before because now I saw that the actual name of the clinic is the Stone Clinic with the in the title as well. Welcome to the Stone Clinic. Yes, so the is part of the clinic name. So that's also a mistake by the translator because it should be, well, then you would probably delete the there in the Stone Clinic in San Francisco, I say. Interesting decision here. The LLM decided to gender here. Later on you will see that it decided not to do it in other circumstances, so it definitely needs to be consistent. If you decide to do it, if you don't want to, then don't do it, but definitely either inform your client, ask about your client, and keep it consistent. I like how the LLM joins the two paragraphs here. Mit anderen Worten, it's literal because the source says in other words, but the translator decided to go for kurz gesagt, which is like briefly. It's fine. I just don't really get it because whatever this is, and then it says kurz gesagt, and then this is the explanation, and that's not really briefly, right? So it's just in other words. It's nicely done by the LLM. It's not briefly. It's in other words. Then comes a sentence that I much preferred again with the professional translator. It basically refers to the fact that the muscles you build in your legs in March, they should last until November. You should maintain them during the summer. You shouldn't start fresh in November. The LLM took it very literally. Die Quadrizepsmuskeln, die im März fit waren, sollten gepflegt werden. It sounds literal, like the quad muscles that were fit in March should be maintained. I think that's pretty much what it says in the source. The target went away from the source and said, halte die Kraft in deinen Beinen von März bis November aufrecht, sodass du im Winter nicht wieder von vorne beginnen musst. Nicely done. Then they decided to go a bit negative, like they say, it says, but here's the catch. So it's actually a positive thing, right? You don't have to do ski-specific exercises all day. The translator says aufgepasst, so it means like caution, be careful, beware. I don't really know why this was decided, but it's fine, like it's not a mistake, but the LLM said, aber hier kommt die gute Nachricht, which I find better. The translator decided to use lateral jumps and squats in English. It's very common to use exercises, workouts in English in German nowadays, which I prefer in this context over to seitlich springen und dynamische Kniebeugen. It sounds a bit old-fashioned, so all good with that. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, the LLM suddenly decided to use off-season instead of Nebensaison. Off-season, it's fine in context like basketball, for example, but in a non-professional skiing context, you would just say Nebensaison. You would not say off-season because that sounds too professional and too much linked to other sports, more American sports like American football and basketball. I have to move a bit because it's already this video. I don't want it to be like half an hour, of course. One thing that I marked red was this big quote by the doctor, which was really strange because actually only the first part, as you can see here, the first part is a quote, then it's there is a little sentence by the editorial team in there, and then it's a quote again. The LLM decided to make the whole thing a quote. That's very dangerous to do because this person never said the middle part, right? And you can't misquote someone. That's really bad. Plus, the quote is not well translated. It's very literal. The translator did a great job here, going away from the source, keeping exactly what he said. Not exactly, but keeping in line with what he said, so he cannot be misquoted. But, take a step back and keep it more casual. Früher sprachen alle von sportspezifischen Training. Statt nur auf gezielte Ski-Gymnastik zu setzen, fokussieren wir uns auf Ganzkörper-Fitness. Nicely done. Then a sentence I prefer by the LLM. It's basically says something like, good news. That's good news for you. Maybe you're actually fitter for the season than you thought. Eine beruhigende Nachricht. That's a calming message for you. Very nicely done. The translation is fine as well, but it says more like, I hope this sounds good to you because you're probably better prepared for winter than you think. It's a bit like long-winded. It doesn't need to be so long-winded. It's fine. Then a big omission by the LLM. It sets up the tips from the doctor and finishes the sentence just by seine Tipps. His tips, but the source is actually quite important, I feel like, because it says he walks ski through his recommendations below. So Ski is the magazine is the name of the magazine, so that should be mentioned, right? It's the only time that the magazine is mentioned in the article, and the translator did that very well. Im Folgenden verrät Ski seine Geheimtipps für einen starken Winter. So they added a little bit because the strong winter is nowhere in the source, so they added something, but it works very well here. Then we have 3 of the tips. There are many more in the article, but I just chose 3. The translator decided to take very short titles with just nouns. Just denominations like dynamic movement, mental strength, and ski equipment as the titles. That's nice because it keeps it consistent and short. Whereas in the LLM, it's full sentences, like it's in imperative style. Setze auf dynamische Bewegungen, vergiss die mentale Stärke nicht. Do not forget the mental strength. It's fine to do it, but it's a bit strange in German, especially when the last title is Das Material macht den Unterschied, so it's not anymore an address to the reader, so you lose the consistency of the titles. I prefer the way the professional translator did it here. As I mentioned before, Skiurlaub is not a thing in Switzerland. Urlaub is a German word, so you would have Skiferien. Very well done by the translator, not well done by the LLM. And there are a bunch of other things, but one thing that I still want to mention before I finish it off, the last paragraph started with quite a figure of speech, and I made a video recently about figure of speeches, how they can be difficult to translate. The most important thing you can do is put your mind in the game. That's a very English, very American thing to say, way to say, stay focused, stay concentrated, put your mind in the game. It doesn't work in German, and the LLM wrote, das Wichtigste ist, den Kopf beim Sport zu haben. The most important thing is to have the head at the sport. In the sport. Now, it does kind of work as a turn of phrase. I don't like it. I would not want it in my blog post, especially if it's followed up by gefragt nach dem besten Schutz vor Verletzungen. So that's very literal. That's probably, that says when asked about the best way to avoid injuries. Gefragt nach, that's this whole first sentence is a fail. Very nicely solved by the translator. Auf die Frage, wie man auf der Piste am besten Verletzungen vermeidet, antwortet Stone kurz und knapp, das Wichtigste ist die Konzentration. Very nicely done, changed the word order, took the quote, put it at the end of the sentence. And in the last paragraph, we have a mistranslation as well, because the source says that they were raised in the belief, so they were I was raised to believe that ski gear doesn't really matter. So that implies that someone else told them that it doesn't matter. So I was raised to believe. So ich wurde im Glauben erzogen. Whereas ich wuchs mit der Überzeugung auf. That means that they were convinced that it doesn't matter. But that's not what it means, right? So, and then a couple of other things not so important, but definitely the professional translator outperformed the LLM significantly. I would give this translation, like a 8.5 out of 10. I really like it. It's a couple of things that I would improve. but it's a nice translation. The LLM I would probably give 5 out of 10 if compared with a professional translator. If compared with machine translation output, it's relatively good. Then I would probably give it a 7. So I was happy with this results. Hope you are too. Hope this was interesting. I see you next Monday with the next one. Bye bye.